Hey everybody, welcome back to Sam Can Do, the channel where I have been gone and you might hear a baby crying because I actually have the whole family with me right now, including Harvey, who's on the ground. And so I'm here to talk about my birth story. Before you continue this video, I hate long disclaimers, but I'm gonna give you a disclaimer. This video, it's not just for women. I think men can watch it too. I think everybody should have empathy for the whole process of birth. But if you are pregnant and you're looking to me to provide a, like, I don't know, comfort of like, this is what my birth is gonna be like, I just want you to stop and think about your mindset and realize that I'm different than you are. My body's different, my situation's different, my preparation was different, and don't use my experience to make you afraid or make you feel any kind of way. Just hear it as a place of like, okay, this is something that happened to somebody. So just be careful not to, because I used to watch other people's birth stories and just really like put it on myself. So I want you to be aware of that. So yeah, and second disclaimer, I'm going to say the word vagina. It's not a scary word. It's a part of my body and it's a beautiful thing. It's not something I put out there because it's precious and I keep it covered, but it doesn't mean that there's any shame. So let's just get it out of the way. Vagina.
Perineum stretches.
Labia. Vagina. We don't use other words.
I thought we were anteing up each other.
No, we're not anteing up anything because it's not anything to ante up. It's just a part of the body.
That's right.
So, I was planning on having a natural birth. Clip 2 when I did a video right here saying, I'm doing a natural birth, but I did say that anything can happen. You never know what can happen. Oh, also, I want to point out my biggest insecurity right now, which is it looks like I have a little bit of a herpes thing going on because I have extreme dry mouth from one of my medications. And so literally my mouth is just cracking over and over on the side, even though I put on chapstick literally constantly. The plan was to have a water birth at our birth center, and I was really excited. Like, me and Hayden spent months and months preparing. We went to classes, we did online classes, we did in-person classes, we did Bradley method, I did the Mama Natural training course, I had her book, I watched a ton of DVDs, and I was super excited about having this natural birth experience. Well, and my number one thing was, as soon as she was born, I wanted to have her come out of my body, let her umbilical cord completely drain out my placenta, and then have her skin to skin immediately after she was born. Those were my big birth plan things, even if something were to happen and I were to go to the hospital. This is Lucy, by the way. Lucy, this is your first time on my channel. Yeah. So we did all this preparation to do a water birth at the birth center, and you know, I wanted to do that because I wanted it to be a very gentle entry into the world, and I wanted to be able to not have a bunch of doctors tell me exactly what I had to do or how to do it, and I would just have, it would be an intimate experience with me, my husband, and my midwives, you know, people I felt safe with. Well, so the day, you know, she was 42 weeks, literally to the day that she was born. And we're getting really nervous about, oh my gosh, we're gonna have to go to the hospital if she is not born in time, because after 42 weeks, you have to be transferred automatically to a doctor's care to make sure that everything's okay, which is fine. You know, it's just not what I envisioned and planned and practiced, and I did a bunch of stuff to try to get labor going. The Thursday before I went into labor, I had a membrane sweep where basically they go up in your cervix and they separate your cervix from your amniotic sac. And that Thursday was the Thursday before the Sunday she was born, and the Sunday makes her 42 weeks. And so we're doing everything we can to get labor going. And that experience was so painful. It triggered some trauma, some sexual trauma that I have. And it put so much fear in me. I was just like bawling afterwards and realizing, you know, for the first time, really, I started to feel afraid. I started to feel really afraid of the birth process, and I'd been going in and out of like early labor with contractions before then, and then after that it just totally stopped. It was like my mindset of fear and self-doubt, like literally I felt like stopped labor from coming. And then come Saturday, we were like, we have to do something to get this labor going. So I actually drank castor oil twice early that morning, because that's like a last resort way that you can induce labor. But not only did I drink castor oil, I also spent some time just in prayer, some time singing and just letting go of my fear and just saying, you know what, God, I trust you no matter what. I trust you if, you know, we go this way or that way, if I end up in a hospital, and just trying to prepare myself mentally. I was saying over my body, like, I just invite labor, I receive labor, and like a charm that afternoon, active labor started kicking in. I started getting these contractions that were really close together, like 4 minutes apart, and so I start timing contractions. I'm sitting on my ball, I'm getting mentally ready, and I'm excited. I'm texting my midwives, like letting them know, like, hey, and then all of a sudden they start getting, and my midwives were actually really close to where I was living at the time. They were at a conference and they were gonna come to my house, and then something shifted where I was like, no, we need to go to the birth center right now, because they were just hurting a lot. They were really intense and they were really close together. And so we go to the birth center, they check my my cervix dilation. I was only at a 3, and they said, you're not really in full active labor, you're like early active labor. And I was like, well, crap. We drove all the way here, my family's here. Our family drove in, and we said, what do we do? Because I don't want to drive 30 minutes with these kind of contractions. I think I have some clips of us on the way in those early contractions, and you can kind of see how difficult that was for me. Okay, so me and Hayden are headed to the birth center because these contractions are intense and they are really close together. It's not too intense. They said, well, why don't you get a hotel and stay really close by, call us in a couple hours, and then when things are really going, we'll get you in the water and we'll start the process. So we go to a hotel. So, you know, that was at like 3. We get a hotel, we eat some dinner. It was super funny because I'm like in the hotel room with all of our family. I'm full on like having contractions, and everyone's eating burgers and hanging out. And part of me is like, I can't do this. And we expect for maybe a couple hours to go by, things to really start going, and to go back to the birth center. Well, that didn't happen. I stayed in the same state of the contractions were getting more intense, but it didn't feel like things were changing until about 3 or 4 in the morning. So it's like 12 hours. So 12 hours have gone by, and I'm in a ton of pain, and it doesn't feel like she's lowering. I feel more pressure, I feel pain, but it didn't feel like she was descending. I hadn't had any discharge or anything, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? I'm 12 hours into real labor, and I haven't had any kind of water breaking, or, which I know doesn't always happen. Some people, their water breaks when they push, but it just felt strange, and I was getting really, really discouraged, and I just didn't feel right. And so I was texting the midwives, and they said, just come back in, because we were expecting you a lot sooner. We go to the birth center, and they said, you know, let's check you again. And they check, and I've made no progress as far as dilation. Maybe like I was 3, a little bit over 3. And I was so discouraged because, mind you, by this time my body was exhausted. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning. I'm totally wiped, and I haven't even gotten to the hard part of labor. I haven't transitioned. I haven't gotten even close to pushing, and I'm shaking, and I'm so exhausted. And I just thought, what am I going to do when labor gets real? And my midwife looks at me, and she said, like, look, I'm not afraid of hard work. I'm not afraid if we're gonna sit here for another 12 hours and that's what it's gonna take. She's like, but because nothing's moving forward, I don't want you to sit through this and not have her move forward. And let me just tell you, first of all, the greatest advice and the thing that I'm most grateful for is that I had a care provider in my midwives that didn't only care about my physical health, but my mental stability and my spiritual well-being. Like I'm a holistic person. Birth doesn't just affect your body, it affects your mind, it affects your spirit. It's all of you. You okay, little girl? You okay? And so having a care provider that took all those things into effect made me feel so safe. So she looked at me and she said, look, I feel like we might need to go to the hospital and get you an epidural, which I didn't want, put you on Pitocin so things can progress. She's like, but then you can sleep and you can get ready for the hard part of labor. And me and Hayden had this like deep sadness to feel like we failed, but also a deep understanding of like, we have to have this baby, and there's nothing left in me. Like, I'm so exhausted. And that, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that we did that because of the way things went afterwards. So we get to the hospital. Mind you, I'm in shock because even though we had a hospital backup plan, I was not expecting us to need it. And so I get to the hospital, and as soon as I get there, I'm taped up to all these IVs and monitors, and it's, you know, not at all what I was looking forward to, but, you know, I was like, it's okay, like, we're gonna have a baby and I'm gonna get to sleep a couple hours and get some energy, because it was maddening how exhausted I was. So we get to the hospital, and the first thing they do is they get me on an epidural, which I bawled the entire time. Not because it hurt. The epidural didn't hurt when it went in. It was literally like nothing, but I was just so sad that that's what had happened, because I set up so much expectation for myself, and then they get me on Pitocin and I'm able to sleep for a couple hours. So it was amazing because things were able to progress, and I was able to get some just a little bit of recharge and energy, and they have me moving in position. I had the most amazing labor delivery nurse. I think her name was Sarah Jack. She was incredible, who had me move in all these different positions to get things going. So I slept for a couple hours, and by the time I woke up, things were really progressing. And I was like, wow, I'm dilated to a 5. Like, things are actually moving forward, and I feel like I have a little bit more energy. And so then they start bumping up the Pitocin because she's still not moving as fast as we want. And they're giving me a lot of Pitocin. And mind you, Pitocin gives you stronger contractions, more painful contractions, but it doesn't matter because you have epidural, and so you can't feel them. And so they start rip-roaring that Pitocin in me, and all of a sudden things start hurting really, really bad. And I remember, I don't know what happened in between point A, where I was like chill and I was dilated at a 5, to point B, where I was screaming in the bed, holding on to the sides of the rails, and literally like yelling and grunting. And they were like, do you feel the urge to push? And I had to bear down just to feel any relief. And they kind of are questioning. So they go, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I want to press the button on that epidural so bad to give me more, but I'm so ashamed to do that. So I just wouldn't press the button because I was ashamed. Little did I know, they were pressing the button for me this entire time, like, because they heard me in pain. And you know, you go from feeling nothing to feeling everything, and not to mention, this isn't natural birth where you're progressing and this is what your body's doing. It's like, no, this is like medical induced painful contractions. And all of a sudden I'm just like in so much pain, and I'm literally, they're like trying to tell me to quiet down because it's, you know, makes things worse. And I'm trying all that I can to use all my relaxation techniques. I'm not in a calming pool, I'm not, and I'm just like trying to grab on. And my midwife and Hayden were both so amazing, coaching me, you know, just holding my hand and telling me to breathe and letting me know, like, Jesus knew you'd be here, Jesus knew you'd be here, like, it's okay, he's with you, we're with you, like, you can do this. But they're still staring at me like something is not right. So they call the anesthesiologist to put an extra bump, like a bump, give me a bump of like extra epidural. And they put it in my epidural, and I'm in the same level of pain. I'm moving in, I'm thrashing around, like rolling, and they're like, you should be immobile. You should literally not be able to move your legs, and you have so much mobility. And so she goes, I think her epidural came out. My nurse says, I think her epidural is not in her back anymore. And so they get on the phone with the anesthesiologist again. They say, hey, and he hears me screaming, and he's like, is that your patient? And I just hear her go, hey, yes, that's my patient. See you soon. And so he comes, he takes the tape off my back, and yep, at the height of freaking transition labor, my epidural was not even in my spine. There was no medicine going, and so I have all this Pitocin flowing through my body. I feel like I'm a wimp. I literally was thinking I must be the biggest pansy on the planet because I'm screaming in pain, like so upset on my back. And I was like, thank God they let me get on all fours, because I could not handle doing that on my back anymore, because she was so pressed. She was posterior, and she was so pressed into my tailbone. It hurt so bad. And I realized that, you know, I had no epidural, and I went natural birth, epidural, back to natural birth, but amped up with crazy amounts of Pitocin, because they think, oh, she can't feel it, it's okay, she can handle. And they were like, your body is contracting harder than some people's body doesn't even. The nurse said that my body was contracting at a level that some people don't even get to. Like, not everybody reacts to Pitocin or will push that hard. And so it's actually a miracle that I was able to have her vaginally, because if my body wasn't able to contract that hard, she wouldn't have come out. So they give me a new epidural, and they give me a nerve blocker because they wanted it to hit me fast. And even though I'm grateful that the pain stopped, it made me so foggy. I couldn't move my legs, and I just started weeping because I was like, this is not what I wanted. I didn't want to be totally out of it. I didn't want to be totally just, you know, foggy. And I started convulsing. I don't know if it was because of the contractions or because of the double epidural Pitocin mix-up of whatever.
I mean, are you comfortable with your contractions? Maybe just let her labor down.
She's still in shock, trying to breathe. She's got a baby. She's like,
well, and it's just, I feel so foggy and shaky that it's just a...
Why?
Because
we had to redo her epidural.
and
it kind of was heavy.
made her kind of,
And I just start crying because I think I'm not gonna be able to hold her because I'm so out of it. And they were like, you're gonna be able to hold her, you're gonna be fine, like you're gonna be okay, you know, she's coming and it's okay. And so finally, you know, the epidural backs off a little bit. I can feel those freaking, I was at 10 and I can feel the urge to push, and I can feel that she's coming, and we start pushing probably 30-45 minutes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 now. 1 high bun.
Okay, don't look at all the okay?
We're getting close, okay? Really close.
You're doing great.
Almost done.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
So painful still. And we start pushing. I'm pushing with all of my might, and I'm thinking, can you see the head? Can you see? And they couldn't even see the head. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a really long cervix. And I'm just like, how long is this gonna last? How long is this gonna last? I'm not in the water. I'm not doing all the positions that I want to do. I'm literally on my back with my legs up in stirrups, the last place I wanted to be.
There you go. 1, 2,
Push.
3, 4,
Push down, chin on your
5,
chest.
6,
Push.
7, 8, 9,
Push.
and 10. And
You're
again.
stopping yourself. Keep going. All the way through.
Hard,
all the way
hard,
through.
hard.
All the way
1,
through.
2,
Don't pull it back.
4,
Push.
5,
going.
6,
Keep going with it.
7,
Don't stop, don't
8,
stop, don't stop.
9,
Push.
and 10. And again.
Push.
1,
Push.
2,
You got this.
3,
Push.
4, 5,
Right here.
6,
Push.
7, 8,
Push.
9, and 10.
But I was surrounded by people who loved and cared for me, and you know, that was incredible. And my moms were supposed to be in the room. They weren't in the room because it was just too crazy. They broke my water, and they saw that she had had a bowel movement in the amniotic sac, which means they were worried that, I wasn't worried. I knew she was fine. She was moving fine. I knew she was okay, but they were worried that she had possibly inhaled or drank some of her own meconium, the poop that's in their body when they're in the sac, and that can be potentially dangerous. So that meant the NICU team, all like 20, 15 people, I don't know how many people it was, had to be in there, and that when she was born, she wouldn't be able to come straight to my chest. They would have to put her on a tray and do a whole search over, and I was so upset. I knew as soon as I heard NICU team, I was so mad, but I was like, okay. And every time they would tell me something, I would just look at my midwife and she would just encourage me, like, it's okay, like, it's fine, like, this is what we need to do and you're gonna be okay. And so I'm pushing. And then the nurse, who was amazing, came up to me. She goes, I need you to be prepared that the doctor's gonna need to vacuum her head out, because her head, every time I pushed, it was like her head was turning and I was just pushing nothing, and it was so intense and painful. And something about the word vacuum just broke me, because it felt like I had every intervention other than a C-section, and I was so devastated to hear the word vacuum. It just scared me. It scared me that, you know, I had this expectation, and you try not to have an expectation, and everyone's like, don't have any expectations, don't have any expectations. And I said, like, I'm not having any expectations, but I was begging God, you know, I was like, Lord, I really want this to go well. And I think that I judged myself. I think I judged, you know, my birth process for if it had to be a certain way. And so they vacuumed her head out. It was fine. And then I pushed her the rest of the way out myself. But her head was so big that before they used the vacuum, I pushed and I ripped really bad. They said there's a lot of blood. And so, yeah. So I pushed her head mostly out. They vacuumed her head out. And then I pushed the rest of her out, and she was out of my body. And when she was out, they clipped the cord, and they didn't even show her to me, which I'm not mad at the doctor for that, because he was focused. My doctor who delivered the baby was super amazing, and you can tell he was amazing at his job. Dr. Dayala at UT Physicians, I really enjoyed his work, but at the time he was very much like, I am focused on keeping baby and mom safe. He's not focused on making sure that I'm comforted, that my experience is lovely. That's what my midwife and that's what my husband were there for.
Okay, this Cassie right in. Listen to her. Listen to her. You hear? 1, 2, 3, 4. You hear?
But the cord was clamped before I had anything to say. Hayden didn't get to cut the cord. Hayden didn't get to catch the baby the way we wanted to. She was taken away on a tray, and I was left there in shock, because I pushed her out and I could hear her crying, but I couldn't hold her and I couldn't see her. And that moment was the hardest moment of the entire process. The pain was awful, you know, the back and forth, the confusion, but just knowing those 5 minutes, and maybe people don't understand this because it's like, she's fine, like, and my midwife was like, she's okay, Hayden was like, she's okay, but just for 5 minutes I had this really painful experience of hearing her cry, of going from being inside of me to being on a table surrounded by strangers, being wiped and suctioned and examined. And I was just like, I just want her to know that I'm here. So in the midst of I was bawling, and my doctor was like, why are you crying? It's over. I was bawling, but I would call out in the midst of my bawling just so she could hear my voice. I could say, it's okay, baby, I'm here. And it was the longest 5 minutes of my life, but I was like, Hayden, go see her, go talk to her. And she was great, she was fine. But it was just a scary moment for me because I had so much fear. I don't think she was afraid. I think I was afraid. I was afraid that she would feel alone, or she would feel abandoned, or she would feel separated or afraid. But I think I was projecting my own fears and insecurities on her.
I was just trying to help let her open her eyes for you.
Yeah.
Yes. She's really dirty. He's coming. The wrong way.
Oh, there you go, baby girl.
Daddy? Get out of your hair.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Hey.
she's really junky.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're so beautiful.
She's 7.
You're so beautiful. Yeah.
And then finally, you know, they checked her, they said she's perfect, there's nothing in her lungs, she's great. And they were able to put her on my chest. And that's this moment.
Still.
Hi, Lucy.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, baby girl. Lucy girl. I got you, baby girl. It's okay. It's okay. Oh, the lights are so bright.
Yeah. Just keep talking to
Got you,
her.
baby girl. Oh, I waited so long to meet you. Hi, baby girl.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I think she looks like me.
I can't get a good angle on her just yet. Smelling.
Try it. No moving.
I'm not moving.
Yeah.
Relax, pressure. What's wrong with you? That's all you wanted, huh?
Yeah.
That's all you wanted, baby girl. That's all you wanted.
She hears you, she feels you, she knows she's with you.
Kaden, did you say hi to her?
Yes, I did.
She knows your voice.
I know.
Look.
Look. Hey, baby girl. Hey, Lucy. Yeah. Yeah.
I know, breathing is weird, huh?
Oh no.
And so, mind you, I'm holding her, and while I'm holding her, I'm hearing the doctor very, very, not afraid, but very seriously talk about my tearing. And I had 3 tears, 2 on the sides of my, I guess, labia or whatever, or vagina. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I haven't gotten in there with a telescope or to observe. And then 1/3 degree tear on my perineum, so that's the skin between your vagina and your anus, butthole. And that one was a 3rd degree, and it was very deep, and it was very bad. And all I could hear, I'm trying to hold her, and he's just like, don't move, do not move. And you can hear him saying things like, we might have to take you to the operating room. Like, I don't think I can do this here. This is so bad. And I have 2 women. You guys, this is the craziest thing of my life. And maybe this is normal for other people, but it was not normal for me. I have 2 people holding open my vagina, like holding open my vagina while he's sewing me. I'm traumatized. I don't know if I should say traumatized. I'm in shock. I'm holding my baby finally after hearing her scream. I'm just done with, it was 24 hours of birth. Natural, unnatural, natural, unnatural birth. In a hospital bed, not like I expected, with people, there's like 20 people in the room, and I have 3 people up in my vagina holding me open. I imagined the thing that I couldn't feel full, I could feel what was happening, but I couldn't know exactly what they were doing. But I told Hayden later, it felt like I was like the predator face down there. And I'm like in shock and in a little bit of trauma, holding my baby, crying, looking at Hayden and crying, and all of a sudden I'm just like, I have to break the tension. So they're sewing me, talking about whether or not they're gonna have to take me to an operating room because my vagina is so broken. And I just start, I don't know, what is it, Bicentennial Man or whoever, I start saying, I don't remember when, but I leaned back and I said, it'll be a new vagina. It'll be stronger, better, faster, reconstructed.
We have the technology. We have the capability to make the world's first bionic
vagina.
Better, stronger, faster.
Oh my God. And so thank God he was able to sew it all up there and then, and I survived. Baby is healthy, and you know, and that was the birth. I did not, it was not at all what I wanted, but I did want my baby and I wanted her safe. And so, you know, I have to grieve the process, that it wasn't what I expected. I looked at a picture of the birth pool that I posted on Instagram, you know, where I was all excited, I was visualizing, and I had to let go of knowing that that wasn't my experience. And other people do get to experience that, and I don't, at least for my first. And just knowing that that's okay, and to release myself of so much high expectation, you know, because honestly, my midwife said if I would have torn that bad in the birth center, that she would have had a very, I don't know if she'd be able to sew me up because of how intense it was, or she'd have to transfer it. So there's a lot of things that I think worked out in my favor. The next thing is to just really, you can't not have an expectation. So I'm not gonna tell you don't have an expectation, but you know, process your grief. You know, I have to process my grief, because what my next video is gonna be about is, I thought the birth was the hardest part, but for me, the emotional battle with postpartum anxiety was the hardest part for me. And I'm gonna do a second video about that, and just let me know if you are interested in it, because it is very, very intense. And I'm a lot better now, thank God. Thank God for friends and family, but you know, that was more difficult. But yeah, you know, pick a good care provider, process your grief, and it's okay to say that you're disappointed with something, because it doesn't change the fact that you are or aren't disappointed by not saying it. It just is how you deal with it. You know, having a life of gratefulness and humility isn't about ignoring your own disappointment. It's about processing your own disappointment in a good way. So yeah, you know, that was my birth story. And for everybody who prayed for me and who was encouraging me. I'm so grateful. And everyone's been asking, what do I need? So I just want to take a break and say, hey, you know what has been really helpful to me is Instacart. And if you want to help me out, you can try Instacart and you can get a $10 off coupon, because with a newborn, it's really great to be able to just have groceries delivered, have dog food delivered to my house. And I have a link right down below you can use. And the cool thing is if you try Instacart, you get $10 off and I get $10 off my groceries. So if you're like, what, Sam, what can you need? I can buy supplements from Whole Foods, I can buy diapers, I can buy anything that I need. So if you want to help me out, just try out Instacart one time. Just get your delivery, your groceries delivered to you, get your ice delivered. You can even order from Costco, even if you don't have a Costco membership, you know? So try Instacart, help me out so that I can get some moringa powder to help with my milk supply for the baby. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'm gonna do another video if y'all want about my postpartum experience and kind of where I am at now. So like and subscribe, and yeah, so happy to introduce Lucy Brave Hernandez to the internet. Yeah. All right, well, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching, and you know, birth is crazy. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. That and the following week. Love you guys so much.